After the Nuggets only won 2 of their first 5 games this season, I saw a lot of people clowning the team and saying their run as contenders might actually be over. After beating the OKC Thunder though last week without both Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray, and the team now on a 5-game win streak, it looks like the Nuggets might actually be the team to beat in the Western Conference. The reason I say that is that the Nuggets have without a doubt been one of the best offensive teams during this early portion of the season. The Nuggets have averaged the 4th most points per game and have done so while shooting the 9th best field goal percentage in the league, and impressively the 2nd best 3-point percentage in the NBA also. If there is any caveat to that though, I will say they do attempt the least amount of threes per game of any team in the NBA, so just be aware of that. They've also been sharing the ball very well as they're averaging the most assists per game in the league currently, and they're also the 5th best team at grabbing offensive rebounds, which probably explains why they're averaging the 4th most points per game in the league while only shooting the 9th best percentage, as they're just grabbing their own misses. So their offense has looked great, but I do need to bring up the fact that their defense has been pretty up and down. And I say that because while they're a great offensive rebounding team, defensive rebound-wise, they're not top 10 in the league, as they hold the 12th spot in that area, and it shouldn't surprise you to hear that they have the 18th ranked defense in the NBA this season. They've actually been pretty good at preventing their opponents from scoring off of turnovers and preventing their opponents from getting second chance points, as they're top 11 in both, but defending the fast break and locking down the paint has been their biggest troubles this season, as they've allowed the 8th most fast break points and the 3rd most points in the paint. That may be a surprise to hear, especially since the Nuggets had the 8th best defensive rating in the NBA last season, but it's really not that surprising when you hear what I'm about to say. If we look at defensive stats for only the starting groups of each NBA team, the Nuggets starters have the 3rd worst defensive rating in the NBA this season. Despite many people clowning the Nuggets bench, and most specifically Russell Westbrook, the Nuggets bench actually has the 11th best rating in the league this season. Their starters' defensive struggles aren't a total shock though, as last season they had the 6th worst rating. The Nuggets were simply unlucky though, as the team's bench was also terrible last season, coming in with the 7th worst defensive rating among all other bench units. It is also important to note that this season the Nuggets are giving up the 7th most points per game to their opponents. Despite the Nuggets' defensive struggles, it's extremely impressive and important to note that the Nuggets have 4 players averaging at least a steal per game this season. I'm not going to count Spencer Jones since he's only played 2.2 minutes this season, but then they've also got 3 other guys averaging 0.9 steals per game, so really close to having potentially 7 guys averaging 1 per game. And they also have scored the 6th most points off of turnovers this season, which of course is very impressive, especially in spite of their defensive issues. As mentioned in the intro though, they've won 5 straight games now, and their last 3 games have been super impressive, beating the Thunder, Heat, and Mavs. And what's been so impressive about it is that they're doing so without Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon, of course, is a huge part of this team and played a big role in the team's 2023 title run, but this season when he played, he was making as big of an impact as ever. Prior to the game that he got injured against the Raptors, where he only played 4 minutes, Gordon was averaging the most points, rebounds, and assists that he's averaged since coming to the Nuggets, and he's also shooting his best 3-point percentage this season since he was traded to the Nuggets in 2021. If we look at how the team looked in minutes with Gordon off versus on the court, the team had a plus 12 net rating with Gordon on the court versus a negative 12 net rating with Gordon off the court, which just shows how much of an impact he was having on the Nuggets this season. There's 3 other players I want to bring up, and the first is Russell Westbrook. I really think Westbrook gets too much flack put on him, and while he had some struggles in the Nuggets win versus the Mavericks, his prior 3 games were great, putting up 21 points on 6 for 10 shooting, 29 points on 10 for 15 shooting, and despite a rough 6-point outing against the Heat, he only attempted 5 shots in that game and was able to still contribute positively with his 10 assists. And while I'd like him to be a bit more consistent, I do think this could finally be him starting to get comfortable with his new team. The other 2 guys are Peyton Watson and Christian Braun. Both are in their 3rd seasons in the league now and are without a doubt having their best seasons of their careers. Braun is averaging career highs across the board, and with him now being a full-time starter averaging 35 minutes a night, he looks like the player the Nuggets were looking for when they drafted him out of Kansas. Peyton Watson has filled in the starting lineup very well ever since Aaron Gordon's injury and is averaging career highs in minutes, shot attempts, and points this season, as well as offensive rebounds, which adds up with how we spoke on the Nuggets being a team that does a great job of cleaning up the offensive glass, so you know he plays a factor in that. He also just turned 22 in September, so I don't even think we've seen anything close to his peak yet, but that's just my opinion. But I say all this to say everybody's got to keep an eye on the Nuggets. With Jokic leading the league in both rebounds and assists and also averaging the 4th most points per game, you know what you're getting out of him. But the team has had players in and out of the lineup, some very notable defensive struggles, and yet they've now won 5 straight games with 4 days in between games to relax every group. One thing that might come back to bite the Nuggets is their bench depth, as it's thinned out ever since they won the title in 2023, and they only had 8 players who saw the court in their win over the Thunder, and only 7 guys who played over 10 minutes in their last 2 games. But if they can make some acquisitions before or at the trade deadline, some of their biggest flaws might get solved. I personally think someone like Dorian Finney-Smith would be a great fit in Denver, but that's just my opinion. I also think with both Kevin Durant and Chet Holmgren now set to miss multiple weeks of games due to injuries, you got to watch out for the Nuggets to climb up the standings in the West. If they maintain this level of play until Gordon comes back, you better watch out because they might end up right where they were over the last 2 seasons, which is in one of the top 2 seeds in the Western Conference. I want to know though in the comments what you think about the Denver Nuggets, any players, or anything relating to the NBA down below. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I am out. Peace.